Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil, the Conquistadork. Very recently, we received a cinematic trailer of Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. And the 40k geeks, we got all under kerfuffle. We had some Tyranids sighted. That was the main big thing for me. And it got me to thinking about the original Space Marine game and whether or not it would still be worth playing in order to get you up to speed before Space Marine 2 comes out. After all, it came out 10 years ago, so what do we think? The original 40k Space Marine came out in 2011. It was developed by Relic Entertainment and published by Sega. In it, you play a captain in the legendary Ultramarines chapter of the Space Marines as you fight your way through Orks, chaos, and basically just make a mess of anyone who stands in you and the Emperor's way on your way to rescuing a relic that could mean the difference between a nice, habitable, Emperor-loving planet and one that's filled with horrifying chaos beasties, which, you know, it depends on your own point of view as to whether or not one or the other would be a good thing. It was heavily centered around just slashing, shooting, action. It's big, it's boomy, it's gory, but does it hold up after all this time? I'd say the first positive thing that I have to say about Space Marine is that it's probably one of the best representations of the 40k universe. And yes, I am including Dawn of War in that, and I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, but the fact of the matter is, both Space Marine and Dawn of War do a fantastic job of showing you the hyper-futuristic industrial world that you're in. But with Space Marine, you are on the ground. You are a part of it. You are in there. And the scope and the majesty and just the, frankly, ugliness of the world around you is so much bigger. It's so much more detailed. And I found that it's a really, really good way to get into this universe. If you've never played 40k before and you're kind of interested in learning a little bit about the world while playing a great action game, I'd highly recommend Space Marine, first and foremost. The next thing that lends Space Marine to anyone who likes video games is the action. It is a really, really satisfying action game. It does a wonderful job of mixing in shooting elements alongside melee elements. You can play any way that you want to. Not only are there a wide assortment of guns for you to choose from, you can snipe, you can use it as a simple sidearm, you can just mow down orcs and other enemies from a distance, but there are actually a nice assortment of melee weapons. Not a ton of them, but each one of them has a different style to it and a different way of playing, and that made it really interesting. Frankly, you just feel like a badass playing this game. It is very much a Dynasty Warriors level kind of thing at times, where you're just taking down dozens of enemies all at the same time. It makes you feel very cool. It has a total power fantasy vibe to it. It's fantastic for that. You really do feel like one of these super soldiers as you mow everything down. As I mentioned before, the look of the game is really demonstrative of the universe that you're in. 40k has been around for decades, and this game does a fantastic job of showing you the world, introducing you to it, and doing it in a gorgeous way. The details on the creatures, on your character, your protagonist, your antagonist, everybody has got so much beautiful fine detail. The filigree on your armor, the different engravings, the combat studs in the face of your protagonist, the rust on the orc armor. It's all there, and it's really, really cool. The detail is fantastic. And to top that off, in addition to the beauty of the looks of the game, it sounds gorgeous too. Not only the voice acting, which is fantastic, and the cinematics that go with that are incredible. They really are a lot of fun. It's very dramatic. It takes itself super seriously, and the music's a huge part of that. The score is this huge, sweeping, epic kind of style of music. It would be real easy to do kind of a Doom-style soundtrack to this. And between you and me, sometimes I did. Sometimes I turned down the volume on my speakers and turned on Cradle of Filth and let the black metal take me away. And that's good too. But the proper way of enjoying Space Marine, I suppose, is kind of more of a Halo atmosphere style soundtrack, where it does have some good percussive hits to it, but it's also very, very epic and has a huge sweeping score. The soundtrack rocks. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so if there are any cons that I would put towards Space Marine, the first and foremost one is the repetition. Now, if you're going to feel like a badass swinging your sword through scores of orcs, it's going to feel great at first, and at certain points in the game, it's going to feel a little repetitive. There are only so many different character models for you to fight against, and it kind of falls into this rhythm of walk and listen to your fellow Space Marines or other, comrades in arms speak to you, and then face a horde of bad guys, and then walk some more, turn on a relic or something like that, and then face another horde of enemies, and then walk some more. It absolutely follows that kind of pattern. You do get a few wild cards in there. You get to occasionally have a jump pack and fly over different levels of the stage that you're in. You get to do like hammer pounds, and that's a lot of fun. And the different guns and melee weapons that you will collect can add a little bit of variety to how you take out your enemies, but the fact of the matter is, it does feel repetitive after a while, and you really, you're going to have times where you're going to want to take a little break just because you feel like you've been doing the same thing. In addition to that level of the combat, for whatever reason, the final boss is a quick time event, which I don't know what they were thinking there. Of course, this is 2011. There was a time there where we had these great big epic games, and it ends for some reason. You're fighting this colossal enemy that seems too big to be defeated, and you're gearing up for this final fight, and it's a quick time event. And I think that was something that happened like a handful of times around 2010, 2011, 2012, and there was so much pushback from people that I think they basically stopped doing it. I haven't seen it in a while anyway. So that's weird. It is a little frustrating to see that, but yeah, it's a small detail, because by the time you're there, sure, you're probably ready for the game to be over, and by that time you've fought a lot of enemies anyway, so you might be almost relieved that it's just a quick time event. Maybe. I was kind of hoping for a really cool epic fight. They give you one with the Orc final boss, so I don't see why we couldn't get one with the Chaos final boss. That's a little bit of a nitpick, but there it is. The game is a little short. It took me just under 7 hours to beat, which, because of the repetitive nature that I mentioned before, that might actually be the perfect amount of time to play the game. However, if you spent full price on this, and it's still $60 at the normal base cost on Steam at very least, this is still a $60 game, which nowadays that's a lot. So if you spent $60 on this game and it was just over 6 hours, that might not be enough game time. Now, if you spent $60 10 years ago, then that might not have been enough game time initially, but it had a multiplayer attached. Sad to say, the multiplayer is dead. Just like any multiplayer that happened 10 years ago that isn't one of the big, MOBAs or something like that. It's dead. No one's on it. I actually went on there and gave it a shot, tried to see if there was anyone who happened to be looking for matchmaking there. Nobody. I can say, however, speaking as someone who played the multiplayer of Space Marine 11 years ago, that it wasn't great. In a world filled with Call of Duty and Overwatch and everything else, it's just something about Space Marine that doesn't really lend itself to multiplayer. I think a lot of that is the power fantasy. One of the big aspects of wanting to play a Space Marine is getting in there, tearing ass all over these nasty little orcs and these shitty chaos dudes, and just just being a total and utter badass. And when it's you versus a bunch of other Space Marines, well, it's kind of listening to a bunch of people claiming to be an alpha on a forum somewhere. It's just tedious after a while. So those are the pros, those are the cons. Is the original Space Marine worth playing nowadays? Absolutely. 100%. I love this game. It has its flaws. It has its problems. I'm not going to act like that isn't the case. But it's still a fantastic example of an action, beat-em-up, kind of sword-swinging, gun-shooting, good time. It's a lot of fun. It's terrific. Just don't buy it at full price. You can find Space Marine for your Xbox 360 on eBay right now for $20-25. That's worth it to me. If you're on Steam, again, don't pay the $60. Wait for a sale. I would say that $20 is worth it. I got it at 75% off. You do the math on that one, and I think it was worth every single penny. Now, if you're an achievement hunter, a lot of the achievements that are on Space Marine have to do with the multiplayer, which is actually the only reason I played the multiplayer as much as I did back in the day. And so if you get weird, itchy feeling underneath your skin when you can't 100% complete a game, this is not the one for you. It just isn't. Having said that, if you're looking for a full, fun, single-player experience that has everything to do with the beauty and grotesque insanity of the 40k universe, I highly, highly recommend 40k Space Marine, especially with the sequel coming out, fingers crossed, maybe sometime this year.
But the line is "What's up, Doc?" and it said to Mega Man.
Yeah.
There are two other characters in this book who are legitimately doctors.
That's a very good point.
And Mega Man is not one of them.
Mega Man has an MFA, which is a terminal degree, but not a doc. He's not a doc.
Yeah. Us MFA havers. It's
we have to remind
everyone.
That's a terminal degree.
It's a terminal degree. There is no doctorate for film production.